So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the GCSE Maths practice paper of 2023, Foundation Set 2 Paper 2, which is a calculator paper. Now as always I'll include a question breakdown in the description below so you can see which question refers to which topic, so if you find them difficult or challenging you can see what topic you need to go back and revise and review. So let's get started on this GCSE Maths Foundation practice paper 2023 Set 2 Paper 2, which is a calculator paper. So looking at question 1, it says work out the value of 10% of 50, and this one should really be bread and butter for you, in which all we're doing here is dividing 50 by 10, and you should have the correct answer of 5. Question 2, it says work out the value of 3 squared, so that's just 3 times 3, which is 9. And then moving on to question 3, it says work out the probability of rolling a 5 on an ordinary fair dice. Give your answer as a fraction. So again, how many 5s are there on a die? That's 1. How many numbers are there altogether? 6. And we've given an answer as a fraction. Question 4, it says 12 pence cost £2.40. How much does 30 pence cost? So here, we want to work out the cost of 1 pen. And we do that by doing £2.40 divided by 12, and we get an answer of 0.2, which is 20p per pen. We then want to multiply that by 30, so we've got 30 times 0.2. If you want to work in pounds, or you can do 30 times 20, give your answer in pence, but ultimately you should have the correct answer of £6. Moving on to question 5, here we want to solve the equation of 4x plus 1. So we start by taking the 1 over by subtracting 1, and then we've got 4x equals 39 take away 1, which is 38. So x equals 38 divided by 4, which gives us the answer of 9.5. We then move on to question 6, which looks at, here is a list of numbers, and what we want to do first is we want to write down the mode of those numbers, so which number appears the most. So looking at it, I can see I've got 2 4s and I've only got 1 of each number, so I'm going to be bold and go for 4. It then says work out the mean, so all I need to do is add up all the numbers, so 7 plus 4 plus 9 plus 10 plus 4 plus 3 plus 5 plus 8. I wouldn't say you need to write this down, but writing down the total should be something that's bread and butter for you. And we want to divide that by how many numbers we've got, which is 8. And so 50 divided by 8 gives me the answer of 6.25. Moving on to question 7, it says Sam spends £40 on petrol. The petrol costs £1.75 per litre. Work out the number of litres of petrol she buys. Give your answer to 1 decimal place. So here what we need to do is we need to do £40 and we need to divide that by 1.75. So all I need to do is just simply type that into my calculator, and if I do that I get an answer of 22.85714286. I want to round this number up to 1 decimal place, so that's going to be 22.9, and that's to 1 decimal place. Moving on to question 8, it says the diagram shows the triangle ACD and an equilateral triangle of BCD, and the question is asking us to work out the size of angle X. Now in an equilateral triangle all the angles are going to be the same, so, and I know that angles on a triangle add up to 180, so 180 divided by 3 gives me 60, and that's a known fact, so if you know that anyway you could just go straight into working that out. Then I can need to work out what this angle here is going to be, and angles on a straight line add up to 180, so to work out this one, 180 take away 60 equals 120. Then if I take the triangle ABC, and this is the angle that I'm trying to work out, which is X. Well, I know that 180 minus 20 minus 120 equals X. So X is 40 degrees. Moving on to question 9, it says the bar chart shows information about how holiday bookings are made, and we've got 3 categories. We've got under 30s, which is in the light grey, 30s to 50s, which is in the dark grey, and we've got over 50-year-olds, which is in the black, and we've got computer, phone, in person, and agent online. Now the first question says which 2 ways of bookings are most popular for under 30-year-olds. So under 30-year-olds is a light grey, so we're looking for which category has got the highest bars, and we can then write in any particular order: computer or in person. Then moving on to 9b, it says in total what percentage of 30 to 50-year-olds booked in person or with an agent online? Give your answer to nearest 10%. So looking at the 30 to 50s in person, now that's going to be 20, or looking just under 20%. So I would say in person you could say anywhere between 18 to 20%. Then what we then need to do is the agent online, which is exactly 20%. So then adding these numbers up, you can have either a minimum value of 38% to 40%, but if we're rounding to the nearest 10%, then regardless of the answer, we're going to go for 40%. Now for 9c, it says make 2 comparisons of the data for 30-year-olds to 50-year-olds with 50 and over. Now with this, there's a couple of particular answers you can give. So some of the most common ones are that there's a higher percentage or proportion of 50 and over who book online. There's a higher percentage or proportion of 50 and over who book over the phone. There is a lower or similar percentage or proportion of 50-year-olds and over who book in person. And there is a lower percentage or proportion of 50s through an agent online. So one of those statements would be absolutely fine. You could also go along and make a valid statement without comparing. So obviously it does say comment on these 2, so you can either comment one over the other, so which medium is better or more common or more popular between either of those, or you could just state facts about 30 to 50-year-olds or over 50s. So something along the lines of that, more 50 and over in person than online, or more 30 to 50-year-olds on the computer than over the phone. So absolutely any of those statements would be good enough for the 2 marks, as long as you're making 2 comparisons and including 30 to 50-year-olds and 50 and over, you'll be absolutely fine. Then moving on to question 10, it says here is a game at a school fair. You've got blue tub and you've got red tub. You win £1 for picking a winning ticket from this tub, and you win £2 from picking a winning ticket from this tub. 500 people play the game at the fair, and the frequency tree diagram shows some of the outcomes, and the question's asking us for part A to complete the diagram. So for this, what we want to do first is we can fill this part of the tree first, because we know that this blue circle and 210 need to add up to 500. So this one's going to be 500 minus 210, which gives me an answer of 290. I can then, it doesn't really matter what order I do the next one, so for number 2, this one I need to do 210 take away 97, and that should give me an answer of 113. And the last one, for this one I need to do 290 minus 19, which gives me an answer of 271. For part B, it then says that a player has 1 go at the game. Use the frequency tree to estimate the probability that the player wins some money. So in order to win some money, you either need to go in either that pot or you need to go in this pot. So for part B, what we then do is add those numbers up. So we've got 97 plus 19, which gives me an answer of 116. We divide that by how many players there were in total, which is 500. So then if I type in 116 divided by 500, I could either give my answer as a decimal or I could give it as a fraction. It's entirely up to you which one we go for. And so as a fraction, it's going to be 29 over 125 simplified, or I could give it as a decimal, which is 0.232. Moving on to our next question, question 11. It says that there are between 20 and 30 students in a class. The ratio of left-handed students to right-handed students is in the ratio of 3 to 8. How many students are there in the class? Well, in order for this ratio to be true, then what we need is a multiple of 3 plus 8, which is 11. So writing down the multiples of 11, I've got 11, 22, 33, 44, and so on. But I'm looking for the number that's between 20 and 30, in which there's only one possible option, which is 22. Moving on to question 12, it says a cake shop makes 120 cakes and 720 donuts each day. Each person works for 8 hours a day and makes either cakes or donuts. In 1 hour, a person can make either 3 cakes or 30 donuts. Work out the minimum number of people needed each day. So for this, let's just split this up into 2 categories. So let's have a look at the cakes. So we want to make 120 cakes. So we've got 120, and we know that in 1 hour you can make 3. So if I divide that by 3, then the number of hours I'm going to need to make 120 cakes is going to be 120 divided by 3, which is 40. So I'm going to need 40 hours to do that. Now for this, each person can work 8 hours. So if I divide that by 8, I need 5 people working solely on making cakes to get those 120 cakes made. Then if I move on to the donuts, here I want to make 720, and in an hour I can make 30. Well, they can make 30. So if I divide that by 30, I can then work out how many hours I need. So I need 24 hours, and if each person works 8 hours, I divide that by 8, and I'm going to need 3 people. So the minimum number of people I need each day to produce 120 cakes and 720 is going to be 5 plus 3, which is 8. So I'm going to need 8 people. Moving on to question 12b, it says the cake shop makes some changes. In 1 hour, each person now makes 1 cake more or 20% more donuts. Cakes are sold for £4.80 and donuts are sold for 25 pence. The manager does some of these calculations, and it says check is working, correct any mistakes and write down the calculations below. So what we need to do is we need to perform this left hand side and just check some of the numbers to see if they are true. So making 1 more cake, well, if they're making 3 cakes originally, so that's going to be 3 plus 1, so they're going to be making 4 cakes per hour. So then working out the sales, well, that's going to be 4 times £4.80. Now I know this is definitely going to be wrong because 4 times 8 is 32, and it definitely doesn't end in a 5. So if I then do 4 times 4.80, I get the correct answer of £19.20. So a mistake that they've made is this total here. So that's the wrong answer, but right calculation. So then moving on to the next one, 20% of 30. Well, 20% of 30 is going to be, well, 10% is 3, so 20%, I'll just write that down, so 10% equals 3, so 20% is going to be 6, so 30 plus 6 is going to be 36, not 50. So again, mistake there and a mistake there. So then from this we can then work out the sales. So if I do 36 times, and it's 25 pence, I'm going to work in pounds, so it's 0.25. And so all of that is wrong really. So here I've got 36 times 0.25, and that gives me an answer of £9. So the total sales is going to be £19.20 plus 9. So let me just write that down. So £19.20 plus 9, which gives me a total of £28.20. Moving on to question 13, it says that a square with sides 2x is cut into 2 equal rectangles as shown. Tick the box to show whether each statement is true or false. So let's first of all work with the dimensions of the rectangle. So we know that that's going to be 2x. Now half of 2x is x. So I could just write x there and 2x there. That's going to be an x, that's going to be an x, and that's going to be 2x. So let's have a look through these diagrams. So the area of one rectangle is x squared. Well, that's going to be false, because here the area is the length times the height. So that's going to be 2x times x, which is 2x squared, not x squared, so that is false. The perimeter of one of the rectangles, so the perimeter is the total distance around, so that's going to be 2x plus x plus 2x plus x. And if I simplify all of this, I get 6x, which is what they've told me, so that is true. It then says the area of the area of square is 2 times the area of one rectangle. That's going to be true. And the last statement, the diagonal of the square is 2x. Well, that's definitely going to be wrong, because using Pythagoras, if I do it on this one here, that blue line needs to be longer than one of the other two sides. And so if one side is 2x, then that blue line has definitely got to be longer. So then the answer there is going to be false. For question 13b, it says a rectangle of each rectangle is 27 centimeters. Work out the area of the square. Well, we've already worked out that the perimeter equals 6x, so that equals 27 centimeters. So then taking that, if I divide by 6, I then get my value of x, so x equals 27 over 6, and that as a decimal is 4.5. Now going back to the square, that if the square has got an area of 2x and 2x, well, that's going to be, well, if x is 4.5, that's going to be 9, and that's going to be 9, and 9 times 9 is 81, so the answer is 81. Moving on to question 4, it says this formula works out the tax you pay on what you earn, and it says t equals 0.2 times e minus 12,570, where t is the tax you pay in pounds and e is how much you earn. So the question then says, how much tax would you pay if you earn £24,000? So all I need to do is substitute this value of e into the formula. So t equals 0.2 times, and then it's going to be 24,000 minus 12570. And if I type that all into my calculator, I get an answer of 2,286. The next question then says, what is the most you will earn without paying tax? So in order for you not to pay tax, basically t needs to equal 0. So then substituting this in, we'll basically need to make this bracket equal to 0. And so the tax threshold is going to be 12,570, because if it is that amount, I substitute it in, that's the only value that I'm going to get 0. Then moving on to question 14c, it says Alison pays 6,300 in tax. Work out how much she earns. So for this, what we've got is, this is my t value. So t equals 6,300. So if I substitute that number into the formula, which gives me something that looks like this, I've just flipped the two things around. So first thing what I want to do is I want to get rid of that 0.2. So I divide by 0.2, in which I get E minus 12570 equals, and it's going to be 31500. So then all I then need to do is add that 12,570 to give me my E value, and that comes up to a grand total of £44,070. Moving on to question 15a, it says solve the inequality. So for this I need to get x by itself, and I do that by getting rid of the 3 and the 2. So I need to get rid of the 3 first, so I'm left with 2x is less or equal to 3 times 4, which is 12, and then divide by 2, in which I'm left with x is less or equal to 6. Then moving on to 15b, so here we've got a bracket and an inequality. So here we expand the bracket, although it's not essential, I could have just divided by 4. Then get rid of this 4, so I take away 4, so I've got 4x is less than 8, and then divide by 4, in which I'm left with x is greater than 2. Then it says represent the solution set that satisfies both the answers from part A and B on the number line. So what I'm wanting to plot is basically this. So here I've got a circle at 2, a circle at 6. I join those points, those circles up, and I'm shading 6 because it can equal 6. So you should have something along those lines. Then moving on to question 16, it says that Amy, Ben and Claire start jogging from P at the same time. Amy jogs on a bearing of 0.55, Ben jogs on a bearing of 150 degrees, and Claire jogs at a bearing of 240. The question then for part A says, how long does it take for Ben to jog 5 kilometers? Well, if they are both all jogging at 10 kilometers per hour, then 5 kilometers is half the distance, so I half the time. So the answer then is going to be 30 minutes. Then for part 16b, it says Claire says after 1 hour, Amy and Ben have jogged 10 kilometers each. 10 miles plus 10 miles equals 20 miles, so they are 20 miles apart. Is she correct? Now for this, there are a couple of answers you can particularly give. The wording doesn't need to be exactly word for word for what I'm about to say, but the contents generally needs to be correct. So the correct answer you should have is no, and something along the lines of that they're not in opposite directions. They're not going in a straight line, so not in a straight line. Or you could say that something along the lines of like the third side is shorter than the sum of the other two sides, and this kind of implies constructing triangles. So if you join the points up, in this case, does it become a viable triangle? And that's not, it means it's not going to. But I would say the most common answers will probably be that they're not going in opposite direction and they're not going in a straight line in opposite directions. For 16c, it then says who is closer to Ben after 1 hour. So if we go back to the diagram, so we know that all of them have travelled 10 kilometers. So the lengths of each of those lines are 10. Now the next thing, this is what we need to do, is we need to actually assess the angles. Now this angle we know is 55 degrees. I'm just going to work without bearings. This angle going from that north line is at, if I just remind myself, is 150. And what colour have I not used? Let's go for purple. And this angle here from that north line is 240. Now what I need to do is, if they've all travelled the same distance, I now need to work out what the angles are going to be. So here to here, that's 55 degrees. Then this angle here is going to be 55 take away 150, so that's 95 degrees. And this angle here is going to be 240 take away 150, so that's 90 degrees. So out of these two angles, which one is going to be closer to B? Well, that's going to be Claire. So the correct answer you should have for 16C is going to be ticking Claire. And the reason for that, well, you can see the diagram, but the angle between Amy and Ben is bigger than the angle between Ben and Claire. So something along those lines would have been absolutely fine. Now moving on to question 17, it says 1 mile equals 5,280 feet, 1 foot equals 12 inches, and 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. And the question is asking us to use the conversions to show that 1 mile is approximately 1,600 meters. So let's have a look at this. So starting off with 1 mile, well, if I convert that into feet, that's going to be 5280 feet. Then if I then convert that into inches, I need to multiply that by 12, in which I get an answer of 6337, or 60 rather, 60 inches. Then I then convert that into centimeters. So to convert that into centimeters, I multiply that by 2.54, in which I get an answer of 160934.4 centimeters. I then want to convert that into meters. So then here, if I divide this by 100, I get an answer of 1609.344 meters. So then what I then want to do is I want to compare the miles into the conversion of meters. So I get that 1 mile is equal to 1609.344 meters. I then want to round this up to, let's say, two significant figures. So 1 mile is approximately 1600 meters, and there I've showed what they wanted me to show. Then moving on to question 18, it says tins of baked beans are sold in different sizes. It says 1 tin is £1.20, 1 pack for 4 is £3.50, or 2 packs for £6.50, or we can get 1 pack of 6 for £5. And the question is asking us what's the cheapest way to buy 24 cans of baked beans. Now for this I'm going to colour code it, or actually I'm going to annotate it. So let's write offer number 1, offer number 2, offer number 3, and offer number 4. So looking at offer number 4, basically to get 24 tins using this offer, I need to buy 24 of them. So that's going to be 24 times £1.20. And if I type that into my calculator, I get an answer of £28.80. Then with offer 2, well, how many 4s go into 24? That's going to be 6. So here I need to do 6 times £3.50. And 6 times £3.50 is £21. Then with offer 3, well, how many? Well, again, 2 packs of 4, so that's going to be 8 tins for £6.50. So how many 8s do I need to make 24? Well, that's going to be 3. So that's going to be 3 times £6.50, and 3 times 6.5 gives me an answer of £19.50. So far that one's cheapest. And then finally with offer 4, well, how many 6s go into 24? Well, that's going to be 4, so I'm going to need 4 packs of those. So it's 4 times 5, and so that becomes £20. So which one is the cheapest offer? Well, it's going to be offer number 3. So the cheapest offer is going to be buying, it's going to be 6 packs of 4 for £6.50 each. And there we go. Moving on to question 19, it says the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed, where r is the radius. For question 19a, it says work out the volume of a sphere with a radius of 6. So for this, all I've got to do is just substitute the value of r equals 6 into this formula. So straight into the calculator, if I type that in, press equals, I get an answer of 288 pi, or I could write down the decimal equivalent, which typing it into my calculator gives me 904.78, and that's to 2 decimal places. So any of those 2 answers would be absolutely fine, or if you wanted to give it to 1 decimal place, that will also be accepted as well. It'll just be 904.8. Moving on to question 19b, it says 4 spheres of radius 6 centimeters is packed tightly into a cuboid as shown. Work out the volume of the cuboid. Well, if the radius is 6, then the diameter is going to be 12. So 4 lots of 12 is 48. The width of that is also going to be 12, and the height is also going to be 12. So therefore the volume of the cuboid is going to be 12 times 12 times 48. No, I wrote 45 there. And if I type that all into my calculator, I get the correct answer of 6912. Moving on to question 20, it says here are 2 piles of the same type of paper. Each sheet of paper weighs 5 grams and the taller pile weighs 7.5 kilograms. We also know that the height of the taller pile to the height of the shorter pile is in the ratio 5:3, and the question is asking us to work out the number of sheets of paper in the shorter pile. So for this, what we need to do first is we need to work out how many sheets there are in that tall pile. So how many sheets in the taller pile? So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the weight. Now we can see that we've got 2 different units of weight. So rather than writing 7.5 kilograms, I'm going to write 7,500 grams, and I'm going to divide that by 5 grams, in which I get an answer of 1,500 sheets. So then from this, what I can then do is, I know that there's 1,500 sheets. So from this, what I can then do is work out the height of a sheet of paper. Now to do that, and let me just write number 2 there. So here I've got the total height of 10.5, and I know that there are 1,500 sheets in there. So if I divide that by 1,500, I get an answer of 7/1000, or 0.007. So that's the height of 1 sheet of paper. Now the next thing for me then to do is to then work out the height of the smaller pile. Now to do that, I need to use this ratio. So 10.5 centimeters equals 5 parts. So 1 part is going to be 10.5 divided by 5, which is 2.1. And so 3 parts is going to be 3 times 2.1 centimeters, which is 6.3 centimeters. Now, if each sheet of paper is 0.007, so each sheet equals 0.007 centimeters. The total pile is 6.3, so if I do 6.3 centimeters divided by 0.007, I should have the correct answer of 900 sheets. Then moving on to question 21, it says here are 4 triangles, and the question is asking us which 2 triangles are congruent, and we need to give our reason for our answer. So with this, let's just have a look at each triangle. Well, in terms of the sides, I can't think I can do with that because I can't work out what this side here is without using advanced trigonometry, which is on a high level, but I can work out what angle this is going to be. So angles inside a triangle add up to 360, so 360 take away 30 take away 65 gives me an angle of 85 degrees. Now that's going to be the same for this one here, and it's also going to be the same for this angle here. So the only odd bin is L, so I can kind of dismiss that one because there's no way of me working out what the third side is going to be. So the next thing I need to look at is the angles and the side that's attached. So on M, 5 centimeters is on the side of 65, 85. On triangle J, 5 centimeters is on the angle of 30 and 65. And on triangle K, that it is also on the side of 65 and 30. So the 2 congruent triangles are going to be J and K, and the reason for it is going to be the fact that 2 angles and a side are the same. Then moving on to our last question, which is question 22. It says describe fully the single transformation that maps triangle A to triangle B. So we're going from A to this triangle. So as you can see, it's definitely going to be an enlargement. And whenever you are describing an enlargement, you need to mention the scale factor. So that's going to be the side of the big shape, or the new shape I should say, which is 6, over the corresponding side on the smaller shape, which is 2. So the scale factor is going to be 3. And the next thing for me then to do is then work out what the centre of enlargement is going to be, and which to do that, what you need to do is draw a line from each of the corresponding points. So if I do that with this and just join those corners up, I'm trying to be as accurately as I can. And now you probably do this by sight. You won't need to draw your projection lines, but I always strongly recommend that you do, because sometimes they're worth a mark in itself. And so if I join all of those points up with projection lines, you don't need to do all of them, but just to make sure it is helpful. So it's pretty obvious where my center of enlargement is going to be. So I just need to write down that coordinate, which is 3, 0, and there is my final answer.